Tales from the Darkside, Season 1, Episode 6, Slippage. Richard Hall works as a graphic design artist and got an offer to work for a new company with a bigger paycheck, commercial graphics. His problem? Things keep slipping away from him. His boss can't find his paycheck, he can't find any of his mail, he somehow misplaces his birth certificate, people seem to not really remember him. Somehow he misplaces, or someone misplaces, his paycheck, his portfolio for his new job, and his birth certificate. He chalks this up to just bad luck, but things get a lot worse from here. He then realizes that he misses his high school reunion, and we get constant references to people forgetting things, losing things, and people seemingly not knowing who he is.
You don't want them to forget you, do you?
I think this is a really good way to start it. They started out slow with small things, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse as the episode goes on. Starts with a paycheck, goes to a birth certificate, goes to his high school reunion, which he misses, and apparently nobody thought to talk to him about it. Then we start seeing his pictures disappear from his actual yearbook. And you really do feel sorry for the guy. We get an interaction between him and his wife, and they seem to be a fine couple.
Well, I'd say it doesn't look all that bad. Flesh tones are warm and natural. But to be sure if it's art or reality, I suppose I'd have to test it with a kiss.
He's not doing anything wrong, and yet these bad things are happening to him. There's many ways you can interpret this. It could just be exactly what it sounds like, a Tales from the Darkside where a guy is disappearing. But they do talk a lot about childhood nostalgia, about missing things from your childhood, and specifically about people that you used to be friends with that you no longer talk to. A lot of the episode is taken up with him talking about his high school reunion and some of his childhood friends that he hasn't seen in a long time. Well, we learn he's never going to see them again, so it does seem like it's trying to play on that. He then finds that his name has been erased from the car registration with his wife, and only her name, Elaine Anderson, her maiden name, remains on the car registration. We get kind of a Twilight Zone, Monsters Are Due on Maple Street scene where he starts getting mad at his wife. And this is where you see the kind of forces are kind of messing with him. They're causing him to go crazy because he doesn't know why things are disappearing. And he starts lashing out at his wife because of this. But it seems like this isn't her fault. It's the Tales from the Darkside mysterious force that's messing with him. So he gets mad at his wife for taking him off the car registration. He can't find any of his mail. None of his friends recognize him. And then we get probably the most heartbreaking scene where he goes to visit his mother, and even she doesn't recognize her son anymore. He gets suspicious that his wife is cheating on him with his friend Chris. This actually ends up being true at the end of the episode, but it seems like at this point she's not cheating on him. By the end, she just completely forgets who he is and ends up dating and seemingly marrying Chris. But once again, just like the child nostalgia thing, he has suspicions about Chris and his wife, and they end up actually becoming true. So it seems like she actually did have a fondness for his friend, and he kind of knew this the entire time. This is interesting to think about. If someone just slowly disappears from existence, how will his wife replace him? Well, she's probably going to remarry. And if he has suspicions that she actually kind of likes his friend, it's very possible, if we're being honest here, she might marry the friend. Even when he calls one of his old friends and gets his wife, the wife lets him know that the friend that he would go fishing with actually hated fishing. So you just keep getting trauma and trauma dumped on this guy. And he gets the actual truth. His wife actually does want to date Chris. And once he disappears, she does. His friend actually doesn't like their fishing trips, even though he lies to them that he does like their fishing trips. It's taking very normal situations that anyone could find themselves in. And I think this does make it more depressing and disparaging. We can all relate to having childhood friends that we're no longer friends with, or childhood friends that maybe we didn't actually even like that much. Or, in the worst case scenario, which is what he's finding himself in, some of his friends actually never really liking him. And that sucks. Then we get a scene where Chris and Richard are talking to each other, and Richard just starts slipping away. Like, he literally just kind of disappears. And what does Chris do? Being the good friend that he is, well, he goes to see Richard's wife. We learn that something actually is kind of going on between Richard's wife and Chris. This was set to the side as she was married to Richard, but once Richard, disappears, literally just disappears, he fades away to an existence, he turns into a ghost, Chris decides to, comfort his wife and give her a shoulder to cry on and some lips to kiss on and maybe some other stuff. So to add insult to injury, his friends don't remember him, his mom doesn't remember him, and then his wife immediately moves on with his best friend. Chris was just playing the nice guy the entire time, just lurking in the shadows, waiting for his chance. Well, he got it. He hooks up with his wife, and seemingly neither of them care. They both basically completely forget about Richard and move on with their lives. There's a hint of what this episode is probably about. Richard says it right as he disappears, that throughout his life, especially with his new job coming up that he's applying for and excited about, he kind of started disconnecting from people. He wasn't seeing his mother. He wasn't talking to his friends enough. And eventually, they just actually forgot about him, and he fades into existence. So just trying to say you should keep communication with people that you care about, because they will. Maybe not as it does in this episode, but they will eventually move on and forget about you. So I give Slippage a 6 out of 10. But Tales from Darkside has done enough of these type of episodes, so eventually we're going to get to some that have a little more action, which will be a good change of pace. The next episode is a really good one. It's called Inside the Closet. It's episode 7 of season 1, and it was directed by Tom Savini and written by Michael McDowell. And finally, for the first series, we get an actual horror episode. It's really great. Oh, and check out our playlist.
Go hit that button, subscribe today. TV Anthology's got a lot to say. They'll guide you through those tales of fright, breaking it down just for me and you. So hit that button, subscribe today. TV Anthology's got a lot to say. He'll guide you through those tales of fright, turn your dark into a pleasant night.